I was walking with a friend one day, contemplating as to why my love life, or their lack of, is absolute shit. And she turned to me and said, "What is wrong with you?" Hi, and welcome to my TED Talk on how to maintain your impossibly high standards, even when you're slowly turning into Olga from Chekhov's Three Sisters. Do you find yourself thinking things like, maybe if I change this one major thing about myself, the guy I'm currently fucking will care enough to pronounce my name correctly? Or do you find yourself falling in love with the character of Joe from Netflix's You and realizing it's not because of the good writing they've got, you just want a man, any man, even a murderer? Or after watching another staple from Netflix, Love is Blind, you find yourself Googling how to sign up for the next season? You might find that these impossibly high standards are slowly driving you crazy or driving you towards the crazies. But I assure you, they are essential to the foundation of your character. So, do you think you have impossibly high standards, otherwise known as IHS? Well, the next few minutes you're about to watch might help you in sorting through these conflicting and controlling thoughts. The first thing is recognizing if you were conditioned from a young age. Those that have been have long, deep-seated IHS. But for those who missed out on that early fun, hold tight and I'll give you a few tips. The creation of IHS is built into you by society in the industry you all love so much. Rom-coms, the media, and fairy tales, to name but a few. It is a must that your childhood was based on some common images that young girls see daily. Stories about women being transformed by the mere presence of a man giving them the light of day. If you find yourself as one of these unfortunate beings who can't relate to this foundation, then I suggest, no, demand that you go back and rewatch some of the classics, such as Ella Enchanted, A Cinderella Story, or The Princess Diaries. Heck, even if your IHS symptoms are akin to Jo March from Little Women, it's always fun to go back and revisit what a good female character is all about. Being validated by a man. Now that you've relived your childhood and teenage years and seen just how bad female-led movies can be, let's bring you up into your early to mid-20s and illustrate what to expect for those who are experiencing IHS in their daily lives. The prospect of being in your 20s and the freedom of being an adult will slowly degrade into a nagging sense of, what the fuck? It's a complex thought process, but I'll try my best to lay it out for you. The impact of developing impossibly high standards at such a young age could turn itself on its head and leave you with a morphed image of oneself. Coupling that with the expectation that a man is supposed to make the first move, thus validating your existence, and the cowardness of being the first to make the first move due to a fear of rejection can lead you into thinking that you're not good enough. That you're not even good looking enough for someone to grab a feel as they pass you by in a bar. That you're not pretty enough for someone to just avoid your eyeline and blatantly stare at your tits. My advice to those undergraduate students who are currently living this life is this: take 1 part closing time and 1 part alcohol, and you yourself could find yourself overcoming your IHS symptoms, if only for a short while. Although, those who have impossibly high standards have seen an increase in the strength of their IHS symptoms the following morning. Now, I can only talk about my own personal experience, but also on behalf of others who share their stories of impossibly high standards. We can clearly see that impossibly high standards wasn't really impacting on our lives as obvious as it appears to do so once you've passed into the latter half of your mid-20s. Here, it likes to take the form of dating apps, or longingly looking at the Facebook of small country town sweethearts who already have a child, maybe even two. It also likes to rear its head in the never-ending form of that maternal comment. So, any chance of some grandchildren? It is in your mid to late 20s, and even into your 30s, that you start to see the warning signs of becoming a spinster. Media, doctors, and family all wonder why you haven't had a child yet, and you start to question it too. Do you really want a child? Or is it this idea that society has given you that having a family, having a child, would somehow complete you? That it would somehow make all this shit worthwhile? Then you start to think, well, I am a rational, intelligent human, part of the superior species on this planet. I can make a conscious decision to not bear children. Then you see a mother walking down the street with their little angel, and you think, if I could just find a man to give me that happiness and sense of completion in my life, I would gladly rip my vagina apart and put my mental health on the line because of a known family history of postpartum depression. Of course. If you are at this point of your life, you realize that men are the worst, and your options for finding a suitable life mate are bullshit. Did you find yourself revealing your feelings of romantic love that you've harbored for over 3 years to be met with an answer that you've heard before? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel the same way. You're such a good friend and I don't want to... Most definitely, your impossibly high standards blinded you from finding genuine connections that could have shown you that that was indeed one-sided. And in the months after that reveal, you find yourself making little to no headway to stop the current messages coming from your most recent fling, who knows they gave you an STI and still doesn't get the hint when you don't reply to their "you up" text. Or you find yourself only really being turned on by the married man who lives in a different country and won't stop sexting you. And you fantasize about booking a weekend trip to somewhere with them. Do you find yourself reading multiple astrology websites and finding that they all state you'll find your strongest relationships later in life? And you start to wonder, how late is later in life? Then, my dear, you can convincingly tell yourself that you have impossibly high standards, and you make yourself go through all the pointless trials and tribulations that revolve around dating, while you struggle to reconstruct your thought process about yourself and relationships for the rest of your life. And at the end of the day, there is a definite positive. You can rest assured that you can always try being what everyone believed you to be: a lesbian.